What's up guys, Agent here with another build video, and today we're going to be going over the Stamina Sorcerer DPS. So this build video is going to be a little bit unique compared to the other stamina builds that you're going to be seeing on this channel. And as you can see here, it's pretty obvious why. I'm wearing a two-handed axe compared to a dual-wield build. For Stamsork specifically, two-handed, at least the parts that I've been doing, two-handed builds seem to be doing better than dual-wield builds, and part of the reason for that is, in my own theorizing, is that because Stamsorks don't have a class spammable, I think at this point they're the only class right now that doesn't have a class spammable. They have to rely on weapon spammables. Wrecking Blow and Executioner, both of those are stronger than Rapid Strikes and Whirling Blades. So the first abilities there would be used as your spammable, and then the second abilities would be your execute abilities. So that's my thinking as to why two-handed builds are stronger than dual-wield builds. That being said, I will still show you guys a dual-wield parse, or I should say the combat metrics report, not the actual parse itself, so you guys can get an idea of the difference between a dual-wield build and a two-handed build. Now, just like the rest of our build videos, we will not be going over any gear for this video. So if you want to know what gear I am wearing, you're going to need to check out the gear video, which should be popping up in the upper right hand corner right around now. Go ahead and pause this video, go ahead and check that out, and once you figure out what sets you want to run, come back here, you can pick up the skills, and we will talk about the rotation and do a 21 million dummy parse so you guys can get an idea of the amount of DPS that we are able to pull with this setup. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started here with our skills. So starting off with our front bar, so this is going to be the two-handed bar, and then I'll show you guys the dual-wield bar that I would use if I was going to go dual-wield. We have a Wrecking Blow, Executioner, Hurricane, Barbed Trap, Bound Armaments, and Flawless Dawnbreaker. None of these abilities I would say are swappable. Hurricane you can arguably swap out to the back bar, but you still want to run Hurricane, so you wouldn't necessarily be freeing up a slot. You would instead just be moving this to the back bar instead to make things a little bit easier. Maybe you want to self-heal on the front bar rather than on your back bar, for example. Then Flawless Dawnbreaker, you won't be using this as your primary ultimate. This is just for the additional weapon damage that you get from the Fighter's Guild passive. On the back bar, we have Soul Trap. You can go with either the Consuming Trap or the Soul Splitting Trap. So Soul Splitting will give you a little bit more cleave damage. Consuming will give you just raw single target damage. So you can pick whichever morph you'd like. Then Poison Injection, we are using the Master Spell after all. Arrow Barrage or Endless Hail, pick whichever one you'd like. I personally have had better success with Arrow Barrage, and it tends to fit into the rotation a little bit better. So going with this. Barbed Trap again, you can swap this out for another ability, and Bound Armaments again, just like Barbed Trap, you can swap this out for another ability as well. If you were to swap one of these two abilities out, I would say keep Bound Armaments, swap out Barbed Trap. So that's what I would recommend doing if you had to swap out one of these two abilities. Then Greater Storm Atronach, this is going to be the primary ultimate that you're going to be using here for damage. Now for the dual wield bar, what you would do is you would basically swap out Executioner for Rapid Strikes, and Whirling Blades here in place of Executioner. So if you were running dual wield, this is what your bars would look like here. Let's put back our two-handed abilities here. Now in terms of other abilities you might want to run, Dark Deal is going to be great for sustain. So if you have trouble sustaining as in trials or anything, you can run Dark Deal. It does have a cast time associated with it, so just be mindful of when you use this ability. So that way you're not necessarily caught eating an attack because you can't block while you're casting this ability. If you do decide to block, you would actually be canceling the cast time of this ability, so you would just have to recast it. But this is a really strong sustain move, so Stamsorks, you shouldn't really have any issues with sustaining at all. And then from there, that's pretty much it when it comes to other abilities. You could run Critical Surge if you'd like, which gives you Mage Brutality if you don't want to run weapon damage potions. Generally speaking, it'll be easier just to run weapon damage potions. Running Critical Surge is, generally speaking, going to be a small DPS loss. So you'd basically be trading out some survivability for basically a little bit less DPS. So that's kind of where I sit with Critical Surge. For solo stuff and dungeons and pugs, maybe can run it for self-heal, but in organized trials groups, don't bother running it. You should be using weapon damage potions anyways for your Mage Brutality. Let's see, what else? Nothing under weapon skills, nothing under armor skills. We're already talking about Soul Trap, either consuming or soul splitting. Pick whichever one you need. So again, soul splitting is for the AoE damage. Under the Fighter's Guild line, not much here. Ring of Preservation might be decent for a self-heal and minor protection as well. So pretty decent ability here. You will find this sometimes being used in progression groups to provide some heal and minor protection. Really great for fights where people are stacked up, so you can stack together to get the minor protection and heals from multiple rings. Let's see what else. Not much here on the Undaunted line aside from maybe Shadow Silk, which will help provide some synergies for Lokkestiiz. Major Slayer uptime for your other DPS. You do have to be with a little bit farther away or to activate this energy, but it might be beneficial. There might be some instances where you'd be able to activate it, or some other another person would be able to activate it. If you need a heal, you can run Echoing Vigor, is usually the morph that I'd recommend running. That's just because it can stack with other people's Echoing Vigor. So if you have 2 or 3 stamina DPS all running Echoing Vigor, you pretty much get 3 times as much healing as you normally would get from Vigor. Resolving Vigor, while it does provide more healing done per second, it doesn't carry over to other people. So that's why a lot of people prefer running Echoing Vigor, just because if you stack 3 or 4 Echoing Vigors together, you actually get more healing per second done compared to running Resolving Vigor. So Echoing Vigor is generally speaking going to be the better and more kind of reliable self-heal for Stamsorks. And that's pretty much it when it comes to other abilities. So not much when it comes to flex spots here. So bottom line is all 5 of these abilities on the front bar, including Flawless Dawnbreaker, you're going to want to keep. Obviously your spambles, hurricanes for your major resolve, and as well as damage. Barbed Trap for the minor force, bound armaments for the just raw damage, as well as the passive that it provides, so extra stamina and extra light attack damage. And on the back bar, Arrow Barrage and Poison Injection you should keep. Soul Trap you can arguably swap out. The magicka that it consumes will help out stamina sustain, so that's one of the reasons why we use Soul Trap. It's not a bad dot either. And then these 2 abilities are flex spots, so you can swap these 2 out as needed for Vigor or anything like that. So if you just need to swap out one, try to keep Bound Armaments if you can for the additional stamina and light attack damage, because you already have Barbed Trap on the front bar. And then Greatest Storm Atronach, you do want to use this because it does provide Major Berserk through the synergy, so definitely want to make sure to get that out as quickly as you can. So as soon as your ultimate gets up, you want to use it to get out your Storm Atronach. So that's pretty much for skills. Again, Stamsorks don't really have a lot of flexibility when it comes to skills, mainly because your class abilities really aren't that great. So the most you'd be able to do is really just maybe swap these 2 abilities out for like Vigor and Dark Deal if you need the additional sustain. Now in terms of rotation, so the rotation here is actually fairly simple, mainly because we don't really have to worry too much about dots. All of our dots line up fairly decently well, particularly on our back bar. All 3 of these abilities are 10-second durations, so they last for pretty much the exact same amount of time. So your back bar rotation is always going to be Arrow Barrage, Soul Trap, Poison Injection. And then on your front bar here, you just have to keep an eye on Hurricane and Barbed Trap. Bound Armaments, for every 4 light attacks you do, you have, I should say, up to 4 light attacks. You get up to 4 daggers floating around. So you're going to basically want to treat this as the bow proc of a Nightblade. So if you guys are used to playing a Magicka Nightblade or a Stamina Nightblade DPS, you should be able to use Bound Armaments pretty easily. It pretty much falls right in line with what the bow proc normally does. So when you have it activated, you want to do 1, 2, 3, and then you want to do your 4th attack and then hit the Bound Armaments, so like so. So it looks something like this. 3. And then you go into your next ability. So when your counter goes up to 3, you want to do your light attack, hit Bound Armaments, and then go back to your whatever rotation you want to do. So that's pretty much how it goes. So in terms of how the rotation will look, start off with pre-buff with Bound Armaments. Start off with your minor force. Again, your back bar rotation is going to pretty much be exactly the same throughout. And then you're just keeping an eye on Hurricane and Barbed Trap and just activating them once they run out. You can afford to let Hurricane run out for a little bit like I did there. Try not to let Rearming Trap run out at all. And if you do have Bound Armaments on the back bar, don't use it on the back bar because it's going to be stronger to let it off on the front bar. It does not treat it as a dot, it is treated as a direct damage, so that's why you want to use it on the front bar, so that way you get the most damage out of it. So if you activate it on your back bar, it'll be using your back bar statistics to calculate the damage, which generally speaking will be worse than your front bar statistics. So just make sure you're activating Bound Armaments on the front bar. So the rotation itself, again, really simple if you're running Arrow Barrage, because your back bar rotation is always going to remain the same. It's always going to be Arrow Barrage, Soul Trap, Poison Injection, usually in that order. And then from there, it's just keeping an eye on your Barbed Trap, your Hurricane, using Bound Armaments once you have all 4 daggers up, then using Wrecking Blow as your spamble. You're going to want to swap from Wrecking Blow to Executioner, starting at roughly 35 to 30% health or so. I personally try to stick around closer to 30%. That's what Executioner is going to do, a little bit more damage than Wrecking Blow. You could also hold off entirely until you get the execute range around 25%, just because that's when Bloodthirty kicks in. And so that way you get even more damage out of Executioner, and you're able to maintain the empower that Wrecking Blow provides for you. So that is pretty much it for the rotation. Again, very simple. Stamsorks actually are one of the easier classes to pick up. So we're going to do a 21 living parse so you guys can get an idea of the amount of DPS that we're able to pull. So again, this is a two-handed build, and I do have the parse saved up from a dual wield build, so you'll be able to take a look at that and compare the damage between those two builds there. For a dual wield build, the rotation is pretty much exactly the same, except instead of Executioner, you have Rapid Strikes, and instead of Wrecking Blow, you have Rapid Strikes. Instead of Executioner, you have Whirling Blades. Execute range is still going to be around the same, so around that 30% mark is when you're going to want to swap over to using Whirling Blades instead of Rapid Strikes. So let's go ahead and get started here with the parse, and I'll try to narrate it throughout. Yeah, we're just keeping an eye on Trap and Hurricane. So here I'm actually going to let Hurricane run out a little bit while I do my back bar rotation, because my back bar dots are more important than Hurricane. Actually, one thing you do want to keep in mind with Bound Armaments is if you have even one dagger out, if you try to activate it, it'll actually throw the dagger out instead. So you're either going to have to wait for Bound Armaments to run completely out, or use up all 4 daggers before you can renew the Bound Armaments entirely. So that Hurricane went out again. I am going to lay down a trap, so that way it's so I didn't want Trap to run out while I was on my back bar, which is why I laid it down before I went to my back rotation. I'm gonna let Hurricane run out again here. Let Hurricane run out again. So you have to let Down Armaments run completely out. If I were to activate it early, I would just throw out all of my daggers instead. I'll actually activate Hurricane here before I do my back bar. I'm gonna lay down Trap first before I do my back bar, just so that way I don't lose Minor Force at all. I'll renew Hurricane here and do my back bar dots. Again, we're holding off on using Executioner till we get to around 25% health here. Execute range. Down trap first. Before we do bound armaments, we don't want to lose that minor force buff. So around here, gonna swap using Executioner rather than Wrecking Blow. Keep on using bound armaments and execute. Don't need to drop anything in execute here. We'll drop our Atro. Point, I'm not going to bother renewing any dots, I'm just going to spam Executioner here because we're so close to the end of our parse here. So there we go. That's a two-handed build. I actually didn't do quite as well here as I did in my previous parse that I was doing earlier. Kind of practice. But this is the amount of DPS that we're able to pull with this parse, 80.7k. Let me pull up the better parse that I did right here, so just shy of 83k. This is another two-handed build, you can tell because Executioner Wrecking Blow here. The dual-wield build that I did earlier pulled 79.7k, so you can see even on a bad two-handed parse, we still did better than this dual-wield parse. And again, the reason why I believe two-handed is better than the dual-wield is because Rapid Strikes and Whirling Blades are not quite as strong. You can see Whirling Blades here did only 4.5k DPS compared to the better parts here where Executioner did 7.4k. Wrecking Blow did 6.9k on our two-handed versus 6k here on Rapid Strikes. Plus, Wrecking Blow also boosts our light attacks as well, so you can see our light attacks did 10.5 compared to here 9.8. So that is one of the reasons, or I should say two reasons, why dual-wield builds, or I should say two-handed builds, are stronger than dual-wield builds. Executioner and Wrecking Blow are just stronger spambles, and Stamsorks don't really have a class spamble to really take advantage of here. One thing that I will point out between a dual-wield build and a two-handed build is that you will need different champion points. So here's the champion points that I was using for the two-handed build. You can notice that I only have 36 into piercing because we do have sharpened as our trait here on the front bar, compared to the dual-wield build where I have far more points into piercing, 61 into piercing, because we only have one sharpened. We have a Nirnhorn on the main hand. So just keep that in mind. If you're swapping between two-handed and dual-wield, you will have different blue CPs because of the different penetration you have as a result of using those abilities. But that is going to be it for this build video. If you guys have any questions at all about this build, please feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. Hope you guys found this video informative, and I'll see you guys in the next dungeon.